creation of a new generation.
And for more NASA videos, hit subscribe.
Nice launch checkpoint countdown net. Pad is clear.
10, 9, 8.
Launch auto sequence has started.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Go for launch.
Vehicle is supersonic.
Stage separation confirmed. Dragon separation confirmed. Stage 1 is transonic. Landing legs have deployed. And Falcon 9 has landed.
You are looking at a live view of Falcon 9 and Dragon awaiting liftoff from Launch Complex 39A at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. In just over 18 minutes, Falcon 9 will lift off carrying Dragon and the CRS-31 mission to the International Space Station. Good evening, I'm Yomei Zhou, a lead propulsion engineer here at SpaceX. Dragon will deliver about 3 tons of science, supplies, and equipment to the space station and will return with over 4,000 pounds in about a month. After an almost 13-hour flight, Dragon will autonomously dock to the space station on Tuesday, November 5th at approximately 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time. This mission will mark SpaceX's 105th flight of 2024 and Dragon's 5th trip to the station this year. Today's spacecraft will be the first Dragon supporting a cargo mission to fly for the 5th time, and coincidentally, the Falcon 9 booster supporting today's mission will also be making its 5th flight. Reusability is key to everything we do here at SpaceX, and to date, we've reflown Dragon spacecraft on 27 missions and Falcon boosters on 333 missions combined. Dragon is the only U.S. vehicle flying today that can fly round-trip to and from the space station, carrying vital supplies and returning safely with critical cargo. The spacecraft flying today may also be the first Dragon to perform initial tests once docked with the station that demonstrate Dragon's reboost capability. These tests are designed to show Dragon's ability to control the station's attitude and altitude, with more on that in just a few minutes. Now, over at the pad, propellant loading began about 15 minutes ago and will complete at the T-minus 2-minute mark. Weather is looking great with only a 30% probability of violating launch weather constraints. The eastern range is green and ready to support, and everything is looking good as we count down to an instantaneous launch attempt at 9:29 p.m. Eastern Time today. With that, let's check in with Joseph at NASA in Houston.
I'm coming to you live from the International Space Station Flight Control Room at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, where our flight controllers, led by Flight Director Ron Spencer and his Gemini flight team, are monitoring the International Space Station, Dragon's ultimate destination after tonight's launch. We're closely following the launch and collaborating with you and the teams in Hawthorne, as well as the Falcon 9 team at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida, to ensure that all launch criteria are met. Now, earlier in the countdown, a device called the Lab Router that enables telemetry for the crew on board the International Space Station to monitor Dragon went down. The crew was then briefly awakened from their sleep shift and recycled that router successfully. And right now, I am happy to report that the teams here in Mission Control are go for launch. The International Space Station and its crew members, including NASA astronaut and Commander Sonny Williams, Butch Wilmore, Don Pettit, and Nick Hague, are ready to welcome Dragon with its anticipated docking tomorrow morning. The crew is rested and ready to receive Dragon after witnessing the relocation of Crew 9's Dragon spacecraft after relocating from the forward-facing port of the station's Harmony module, Node 2, or the zenith-facing port of the module to clear its path for the arrival of the commercial resupply mission. Now, as we shift our focus here in Houston to the countdown for Dragon, I'll hand it back to you in Hawthorne for more details on the vehicles involved in this mission. Yome?
As we continue to count down, let's take a closer look at the vehicles that will be taking CRS-31 to the space station today. Sitting atop the Falcon 9 rocket, Dragon in its trunk stand about 27 feet tall. Dragon has 16 Draco thrusters that can be used in space to help navigate the spacecraft to its destination, each providing 90 pounds of force. Dragon's trunk attached below the spacecraft holds solar cells that power Dragon while it's in free flight, and the trunk can also carry unpressurized cargo, which it will be doing today. About 50 seconds after separation, Dragon's nose cone deploy sequence will begin, exposing its guidance navigation controls that help Dragon autonomously fly to the space station. The nose cone also houses the docking mechanism that will connect with the station. Dragon has played a significant role in advancing our future in space by safely transporting crew and cargo to and from the space station. Altogether, the reusable Dragon spacecraft fleet has completed 9 human spaceflight missions on behalf of NASA and has both visited the station and returned to Earth 43 times under NASA's commercial resupply and commercial crew programs. This particular spacecraft has supported 4 previous commercial resupply missions for NASA, including CRS-21, 23, 25, and 28. And launching Dragon to orbit today is Falcon 9, a 2-stage rocket developed and manufactured by SpaceX, known for its safe, reliable, and cost-effective access to space. Just underneath Dragon, we have the second stage of the vehicle. The second stage is powered by a single Merlin vacuum engine, or MVAC, which is optimized to perform in the vacuum of space. And that second stage will secure Dragon's entry into low Earth orbit before separating, leaving Dragon to continue its journey to the space station on its own thrusters. Just below the second stage is the first stage, which contains 8 engines arranged around one center engine, all held in place by a structure called the Octaweb. Each of these Merlin 1D engines delivers about 190,000 pounds of thrust at sea level, which gives Falcon 9 a combined 1.7 million pounds of thrust. The booster supporting today's mission previously launched 4 missions, including Crew 8, Polaris Dawn, and 2 Starlink missions. Now, with T0 coming up in just about 12 and a half minutes, our teams in Florida are doing a series of system checks to ensure Dragon and Falcon 9 are ready to fly. Now, while on station, the CRS-31 spacecraft flying today may also perform 2 initial tests to demonstrate Dragon's ability to control the space station's attitude as well as Dragon's reboost capability. Reboosts are necessary to counteract the effects of atmospheric drag, which can cause the station to lose altitude. Once the station is in a configuration for SpaceX's reboost demo, the aft Draco engines in the service section will fire for just over 12 minutes and give the station a boost. SpaceX has partnered with NASA on the creation of control algorithms to help guide and steer the Dragon and ISS through these dynamic events, which will be the first time Dragon performs tests of this nature on station. SpaceX will leverage data collected during CRS-31 to inform important analyses, which will support future enhanced capabilities and programs like the U.S. Deorbit Vehicle, or USDV. NASA selected SpaceX to develop and deliver the USDV, which will be used to deorbit the space station for capsules supporting human spaceflight that have docked to the station. Their names are Endeavour, Resilience, Endurance, and Freedom. Crew 9 arrived on board Dragon Freedom, which is currently docked to the station and is SpaceX's 15th human space mission since 2020, when Dragon became the first private spacecraft to take humans to the International Space Station. As Joseph mentioned, Crew 9 actually just completed a port relocation maneuver from the Ford port to the Zenith port over the weekend to make room for Sierra's 31 launch today. Now, as the countdown continues, let's check back with Joseph at JSC.
Thank you very much, Yome. Teams here in Houston continue to monitor the countdown of NASA's SpaceX CRS-31 mission with everything on track for a successful launch. 2024 has been a year of important achievements for the International Space Station, showcasing what's possible through collaboration, as NASA's 31st commercial resupply mission with SpaceX marks the 12th launch to the orbiting laboratory this year. And it's clear that success in space is a collective effort, built on dedication and teamwork. Let's take a closer look at how this team effort has kept the station thriving throughout the year. The year began with Progress 87 delivering essential supplies to the International Space Station. NASA's SpaceX 29th commercial resupply mission followed, bringing critical research and hardware, ensuring support for science aboard the orbiting laboratory. Axiom Mission 3 expanded the station's research capabilities, introducing new perspectives from around the world. In March, NASA's SpaceX Crew 8 launched from Florida, each crew's transition mirroring the importance of coordination and teamwork in maintaining station operations. As the year progressed, NASA's 30th resupply mission with SpaceX and the arrival of additional crew aboard Soyuz MS-25 sustained the flow of research, resources, and explorers. Progress 88 reinforced the station's supply chain, maintaining momentum for new scientific discoveries. As summer arrived, Boeing's Crew Flight Test marked a key milestone in human spaceflight. And Northrop Grumman's NG-21 mission delivered supplies critical to daily life and research. The arrival of Soyuz MS-26 added to the station's capability for long-duration human spaceflight. With the recent arrival of Crew 9, the station continues to be a hub of progress and global cooperation. It's a place where scientists and explorers from across our planet work together, advancing our understanding of life in space, creating opportunities for the future. Every mission this year, from cargo deliveries to crewed launches and hosting 25 residents, reminds us that space exploration is a shared endeavor. The commitment and adaptability of countless individuals, both on Earth and in orbit, keep the station thriving. As we look ahead, we remain focused on building a future where exploration continues to push boundaries for all humanity. As we reflect on the accomplishments of 2024, it's clear that every milestone aboard the International Space Station is made possible through the dedication and teamwork of countless individuals around the world. And that journey doesn't stop there. This mission is set to deliver over 3 tons of critical cargo, including scientific hardware and samples that will advance our understanding of the physical and biological phenomena. The microgravity environment of the space station provides a unique opportunity to conduct research that can drive new technologies for deep space exploration and improve life back here on Earth. Behind every experiment, there are scientists and engineers who have spent months, sometimes years, preparing for this moment. Let's take a look at some of the science heading to the station. NASA and its international partners are launching scientific investigations on SpaceX's 31st commercial resupply services mission to the International Space Station. The Coronal Diagnostic Experiment, or CODEX, will examine solar wind and create a global comprehensive data set to help scientists validate theories for what heats solar wind, which is 1 million degrees hotter than the sun's surface. A live Antarctic moss will be studied to understand the effects of cosmic radiation and microgravity on plants. Results could help identify biological systems suitable for use in bioregenerative life support systems on future missions. Dozens of samples will be exposed to space to evaluate material stability and to help researchers better understand the impacts of spaceflight. Results could support better design for spacecraft and satellites.
Researchers will demonstrate cold welding techniques in space and evaluate sample integrity. Results could aid in the development of interior spacecraft repair methods and improve applications of cold welding on Earth. Discover more about all of the science making the journey to the orbiting lab at nasa.gov/ISS-science.
It is currently T-minus 5 minutes and 10 seconds, and everything continues to be go for launch. Coming up shortly, the transporter erector, also known as the strongback or TE, will retract away from Falcon. The TE is the large truss structure you see there.
9 tanks are pressing for strongback retract.
Next to the rocket, you just heard that call out that the tanks are pressing in preparation.
Is it configured for terminal count?
For strongback retract, and Dragon is in configure for terminal count.
Dragon is in terminal count and is on internal power.
There is that call out for Dragon transitioning to internal power. And ahead of the transporter erector reclining, you'll see the clamp arms just below Dragon
Strongback lower has started.
begin to open. Now the transporter erector is designed to transport, raise, and support Falcon 9 at the launch pad and uses its umbilicals or flexible lines to route the vehicle's fluids, power, and telemetry from ground systems to the rocket and payload until Falcon 9 switches to internal power. There you can see those clamp arms beginning to open right under Dragon at the top of the second stage. You should see that truss structure on the right.
Countdown, LD pulling for MD for final status check. MD is go for launch.
You see the transporter vector reclining from Falcon 9. And there it is, fully reclined from Falcon 9.
Range is also green and ready to support. If for some reason we are not able to launch tonight, we do have a backup opportunity tomorrow, Tuesday, November 5th at 8:06 a.m. Central Time, 9:06 a.m. Eastern. At this point in the countdown, both the first and second stages are nearly fully loaded with 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. At T-minus 60 seconds, Falcon 9 will be in startup. This means that the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers have taken over the launch countdown. And just inside T-minus 2 seconds, we'll light the Merlin 1D engines for liftoff.
The vehicle continues to be healthy, and the Falcon 9 team is tracking no issues. Currently, the weather is green and the range is ready to support at T0 at 9:29 p.m. Eastern Time. Weather is looking good, and in these last few minutes, Falcon 9 is performing final health checks on the primary communications, avionics, and propulsion systems ahead of launch.
Stage 2, lock slow complete.
With that, we're hearing the checkouts of the second stage thrust vector control actuators underway and referred to as the engine gibble or wiggle test. And this is when SpaceX moves the nozzles ever so slightly to make sure that the guidance hardware is acceptable for flight. And as Dragon now moves into auto idle, continues those checkouts for the first stage engines, and that happens just seconds before ignition. At the time of launch, the International Space Station will be flying some 260 statute miles crossing the Atlantic Ocean.
Falcon 9 is in startup. Dragon is in countdown. SpaceX Launch director, go to launch.
There is that final launch director go. All systems are go for launch of Falcon 9 and the Sierra 31 mission.
T-minus 30 seconds. Seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition, engine full power, and liftoff. Go SpaceX, go Falcon, go Sierra.
Vehicles pushing down range. And we have liftoff. NASA's SpaceX 31st commercial resupply mission is on its way to the International Space Station, carrying science, supplies, and the spirit of exploration.
Now, during ascent, we will tilt or gimbal the engines, guiding the rocket into what we call a gravity turn. Now, during this turn, the vehicle is flying both up and horizontally away from the launch pad. The rocket
Power telemetry nominal.
typically needs to go 17,500 miles per hour horizontally in order
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
avoid getting pulled back down to Earth. You just heard that call out that Falcon 9 is supersonic, and shortly we'll be throttling the engines back in preparation for max Q.
Max Q.
There's that call for max Q. That's the maximum aerodynamic pressure that the vehicle will see during ascent. And coming up, the second stage is in its burn, carrying Dragon and the Sierra 31 mission towards its intended orbit.
Stage 1 boost back shutdown.
There is the end of that boost back burn. Again, that was the first of 3 planned burns of the first stage. And in about 3 minutes, there will be 2 additional burns, the entry burn and the landing burn of that first stage, to bring it back down to land at landing zone 1 at Cape Canaveral. We are at T plus 3 minutes and 55 seconds here in today's mission. Sierra 31 is SpaceX's 105th launch this year, and we are coming up on the entry burn and then second engine cutoff of the second stage. Now, the entry burn is slated for a little over 2 minutes from now at the T plus 6.5 minute mark, and you should see that on your screen when the first stage performs it. And for that entry burn, we relight 3 of the 9
Vehicles
M1D.
are on a nominal trajectory.
You heard that call out. Vehicles are all on a nominal trajectory. And again, for that entry burn, we will relight 3 of the 9 M1D engines, starting with the center E9 engines, followed shortly after by the E1 and E5 engines, which are on either side of it. And this burn will slow the vehicle down as it passes back into the Earth's atmosphere. And the reason we need to perform this entry burn is we need to slow down to reduce re-entry forces, which helps us to recover and reuse the first stage. You can follow along on the bottom left and right hand of your screen for the speed and altitude for the first and second stages respectively. And the second stage, which you can see on your screen right now, is on its first burn. And this is what will be targeting the Dragon orbit, from whence, after Dragon's operation, Dragon will continue the rest of its journey to the International Space Station using its own onboard Draco thrusters. We are just about 30 seconds from the start of the first stage entry burn. This will be about a 20-second burn that slows that first stage down as it re-enters the Earth's atmosphere.
Nominal trajectory.
We are also currently in the middle of the second stage burn. We have about 2 minutes left in this burn.
Stage 1 entry burn.
There is the start of the stage 1 entry burn. And this is a 3-engine burn of the first stage, slowing the first stage down as it comes back home
Stage 1
first.
entry burn shutdown. Stage 1 FTS is saved.
And there is that call out for a good entry burn and the flight termination system being saved. Really cool views of the nighttime on the Cape Canaveral coast. The first stage that supporting today's mission will perform has performed this entry burn for the 5th time. And Falcon 9 is the world's first orbital class reusable rocket. And this is important because it allows us to reuse the most expensive parts of the rocket, which drives down the access to space. We should see that landing burn starting in just a few moments.
Stage 1 landing burn.
There is the start of the stage 1 landing burn.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing is confirmed.
What a beautiful view of that
Thermal guidance.
first stage landing. And with that landing marks SpaceX's 360-second recovery of an orbital class rocket, including the first stage landings for Falcon 9 and Heavy. And we are coming up on second engine cutoff 1 here on the second stage in just a few moments.
Stage 2 shutdown.
There is that call out for SECO 1. You can see that MVAC engine slowly cooling off.
Nominal orb insertion.
There is that confirmation of a good orbit. Looks like we are on track for Dragon separation in just a few minutes here at the T plus 9 minute and 25
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
second mark. You can see that MVAC engine continuing to cool down. And we are waiting for Dragon separation here in just a few moments.
Dragon separation confirmed.
There is confirmation of Dragon separation. You could just see it floating away there. Now, if you're just joining us, we did have a successful launch from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center. And everything has proceeded nominally so far. We had stage separation occurred at about 2.5 minutes into flight, and that was followed by a successful landing of Falcon 9's first stage on landing zone 1. And that marked the 5th landing for this particular booster. And for those of you following along, this Dragon spacecraft previously supported 4 commercial resupply missions for NASA, including CRS-21, 23, 25, and 28. At about a few minutes ago, we had a successful second engine cutoff, or SECO 1, and this was followed by a confirmation of a good orbital insertion. We recently saw Dragon separation floating away from the second stage. as it begins its journey to the International Space Station. We should see the start of nose cone deploy here for Dragon shortly as well. A very exciting sight to see. Dragon, you saw, was drifting away from Falcon 9's second stage, confirming spacecraft separation. Let's check in with Joseph as we prepare for nose cone deploy and preview what's in store for the rest of the flight.
Thank you very much, Yome, and we're following along here from Mission Control in Houston. A wonderful launch of Dragon from the historic launch pad 39A at NASA's Kennedy. Dragon overall is carrying well over 3 tons of cargo that is heading to the International Space Station and the Expedition 71 crew, and that includes crew supplies, of course, science investigations, spacewalk equipment, vehicle hardware, and computer resources. And one thing that the Dragon is carrying also is a lot of food for the crew on board. And a common and fun question we get here at NASA is what kinds of delectables are inside Dragon and are on their way to the station for that crew who are anxiously awaiting them. And we did receive a note that there is a fresh food kit that includes some fruits and vegetables, much like citrus and apples, some blueberries, sweet onions, and all that on its way inside Dragon right now. There are also 4 zipper crew kits, including crew preferences of coffee. With the holidays arriving, there's 1 bulk overwrap bag, or bob, that features special occasion holiday items like lobster, crab, and quail. In addition to these items, there are also 110, that's right, 110 bulk overwrap bags containing standard food menu items, as well as some crew preference choices along the way. Now, as we take a look at the control rooms that are monitoring Dragon's progress and the International Space Station, there on your left, the International Space Station Flight Control Room, which is where we are here in Mission Control Houston. And then, of course, on the right, the teams in SpaceX monitoring Dragon's journey. And now this journey is going to continue on into the early morning hours and through the phasing burns that will be required to get Dragon to the space station by both teams, and then they'll come together jointly just before docking to work and connect the cargo craft to the orbiting laboratory. And we're continuing to await the nose cone deploy of the Dragon craft as we continue to monitor everything here from Mission Control Houston. Now, we mentioned a series of burns required for the spacecraft once it reaches orbit, which it just did. And now in about 30 minutes or so, we will see that first round of what will be 5 burns that will take Dragon onto its next phase of the mission. So as we continue to await the confirmation of nose cone deploy, let's take a closer look at the next several hours and what's in store for the Dragon spacecraft. Now, immediately after Dragon is separated from the Falcon 9, it begins what we call the activation and rendezvous phase of the mission. And during this phase, Dragon is configured for on-orbit operations. And this phase begins after the separation of Dragon from Falcon 9 and ends with the completion of the final co-elliptic burn. Our initial orbit today is 190 kilometers by 210 kilometers. And with those values representing the perigee and apogee of the orbit, or the lowest and highest points over Earth. That means the orbit isn't a perfect circle, but more like a very slight ellipse. Now, over the next several hours after liftoff, Dragon will execute a series of burns, which will gradually raise its orbit to align more closely with the station. And there are 5 major burns, or firings, of those Draco thrusters on Dragon that will bring the spacecraft close to station before we begin those final approach maneuvers. As we take a look inside the nose cone of Dragon as we speak, as the nose cap is opening right in front of us, and continuing to watch the nose cone deploy, again exposing those forward bulkhead thrusters that will begin those 5 phasing burns for the spacecraft. And we will get video back as soon as possible, but could quickly take a look at some of those burns as the nose cone approaching the about halfway point of opening. The first burn is the phase burn, and that's the first major one that's going to come in about 33 minutes from now, and that's performed at the apogee, or the highest point of the initial orbit, and will raise Dragon's perigee, or lowest point, to a higher altitude. And then from there, we'll transfer over to the boost burn, which will happen in the early morning hours. The next burn, based on what our orbital data will show us, is that'll raise Dragon's orbit until its orbit reaches an altitude that is just 10 kilometers lower than the space station. And from there, we'll move into burn number 3, the close co-elliptic burn. And that's followed soon by to place Dragon on an orbit roughly co-elliptic with the International Space Station. And this means that the crew will be about 10 kilometers lower than the space station itself during the entire orbit around the Earth. And then we move into burn number 4, which will be the transfer burn. And this is called the transfer burn, where we will be raising Dragon's apogee, or again, the highest point of its orbit, to just 2.5 kilometers below the station. As we continue to monitor the nose cone deploy of Dragon as we speak, about 3/4 of the way there to transfer us into the burn breakdown of the 5th burn, the final co-elliptic burn. And that is where we will round out everything with that final co-elliptic burn to once again maintain a constant orbit beneath the station, this time just 2.5 kilometers below. And then from there, Dragon will get ready to line itself up, fine-tuning its way before docking in the early morning hours of tomorrow, and that'll start with the approach initiation and then make its way on to waypoint 0. As we continue coverage in a successful on-time launch of NASA's SpaceX 31st commercial resupply service. En route to the International Space Station. As nose cone deploy. Just a moment away from locking into position. And we just received confirmation that the nose cone has indeed been deployed, exposing those Draco thrusters that will help the spacecraft climb its way and begin its journey en route to the International Space Station. Now that the nose cone is deployed, Dragon is ready for its phasing burns to the International Space Station with a successful orbital insertion. And I'm now joined by Bill Spetch, Operations Integration Manager of the International Space Station. Bill, thank you very much for joining us.
Great to be here.
We've discussed the crucial role of collaboration, teamwork, and dedication in making missions like this possible and ensuring a continuous flow of science, technology, and resources. How have you witnessed this in your team's preparation for this mission and in recent missions?
Well, operating a world-class orbiting laboratory requires extensive collaboration across all aspects of the ISS program. We have adapted to numerous items that were not as we originally planned, and we have the best team in the world, and really around the world, working solutions to every potential problem that could arise. Most recently, the outstanding international collaboration around the very busy traffic schedule to ISS, and adjusting to that ever-changing launch and landing schedule while we prepared for the future by adding new capabilities to the ISS.
It certainly has been a busy time for the space station. It feels like it's been like that for quite some time now. And with this cargo mission, add that to the traffic dossier for this mission. Well, in addition to the cargo being delivered aboard it, another important aspect of this mission is showcasing the spacecraft's reboost capabilities. We touched upon it earlier in the broadcast of this importance and what it means to the International Space Station. But can you explain the significance of this ability and its importance for the space station?
Yeah, the ISS requires periodic boosts to maintain its orbit around the Earth. And normally these are completed by Progress, the Zvezda service module, or even Cygnus. It is important to us to continue to add capability to the ISS, and performing reboost with Dragon is an awesome addition to that capability. Plus, this allows the team to gather data that helps inform the design and operation eventually of the US-2 orbit vehicle.
In your time and in your career with the International Space Station, you focused on maintaining its health and its integrity. How do missions like this one help achieve those goals while also advancing the station's capabilities, like you just touched upon with some of the traffic coming to and fro, also the scientific research and the technological developments?
ISS depends on a steady flow of supplies to safely maintain and continue on with its mission. This mission delivers examples of all those needs for the vehicle. Dragon will deliver food, spares, and of course the very important science that we conduct on board. Dragon also returns items to the ground. This allows us to refurbish hardware instead of building new copies, investigate designs and improve reliability for future spaceflight endeavors, and allows the scientific sample return to Earth that furthers research.
Well, we look forward to seeing all that this mission has to have in store, especially those reboost capabilities for this Dragon spacecraft. Bill Spetch, Operations Integration Manager of the International Space Station. Sir, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Dragon now begins its journey towards the International Space Station, using phasing burns to gradually close in the distance. This process will take about a day and a half, with approach and docking expected actually early tomorrow morning at 9:15 a.m. Central Time, 10:15 a.m. Eastern. Tune in to NASA Plus for live coverage of the final approach and docking starting at 7:45 a.m. Central Time, 8:45 a.m. Eastern, with docking expected around 9:15 a.m. Central, 10:15 a.m. Eastern. With a couple of hours after docking and settling in, the Expedition 72 crew will perform a series of leak checks, and the crew will begin to then unload the Dragon spacecraft. For the latest updates, be sure to visit nasa.gov. We will see you tomorrow for docking, and until then, let's check in one more time with Yome and our team in Hawthorne. This is Mission Control Houston.
Thanks, Joseph. The Dragon supporting CRS-31 will return to Earth in about 1 month. SpaceX is honored to be a part of NASA's Commercial Resupply Services initiative to deliver critical cargo to the space station, and we thank NASA for entrusting us with today's mission. This mission marks our 105th of the year and our 400th successful liftoff of Falcon. Thank you to the entire SpaceX team and to all of our customers for helping to make this incredible journey possible. And congratulations to the SpaceX and NASA teams for tonight's successful launch. Make sure to follow at SpaceX on X and check out spacex.com/launches for up-to-date missions and schedules. Thanks as always for tuning in, and have a good night.
W01 WeatherNet. Liftoff conditions looking pretty good.
ESTS is ready for launch.
Ignition. Liftoff.
Falcon 9 has cleared the tower.
Ten, 9, 8.
Side booster ignition.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
It's December 6th, and you're looking at a live view of Falcon 9 on Launch Pad 39A at Kennedy Space Center, and we're about to launch a Dragon spacecraft. Liftoff is targeted at 11:17 a.m. Eastern Time. My name is Andy Tran, and I'm a production supervisor here at SpaceX. It's great to be here with you to cover our 21st commercial resupply mission to the International Space Station for NASA. On screen and on top of Falcon 9 is an upgraded version of our Dragon vehicle. We've seen this new vehicle fly people twice now. The first was on our Demonstration 2 mission earlier this year with NASA astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley, and most recently on the Crew 1 mission with the four NASA astronauts who are currently still living and working on the space station. For today's mission, instead of people, we'll be transporting cargo, and this will be the first flight of cargo in our upgraded Dragon. It's worth highlighting that all CRS flights going forward will fly from Pad 39A, and late cargo load will be done through the crew access arm. To this day, Dragon remains the only spacecraft currently flying that's capable of transporting significant amounts of cargo to and from the Earth. Once Dragon reaches its destination, it will be the first time that we have two Dragons docked at the orbiting laboratory at the same time. Between Crew Dragon and the cargo resupply missions, at this time, we are anticipating that there will be a Dragon spacecraft attached to the International Space Station at all times throughout 2021. And one final milestone to highlight today. If all goes according to plan, today's launch will mark the 100th successful mission for Falcon 9. So a lot of excitement ahead in the next hour. We are targeting an instantaneous launch window, currently at T-minus 13 minutes and counting, with all systems currently go at both our Kennedy Space Center and SpaceX Mission Control in Hawthorne, California. So with that, let's take a closer look at today's Falcon 9 and Dragon spacecraft. This is going to be SpaceX's 24th launch this year, and as I mentioned, this is the cargo configuration of our new Dragon spacecraft. This version of Dragon is designed for up to 5 flights, while the previous version of Dragon can only support 3. Dragon was also designed from the beginning to be reused, so we are hoping to refly this vehicle again in the future. To date, 9 of our CRS missions have launched flight-proven Dragons. Today, we'll be delivering approximately 6,400 pounds of cargo to the space station, including critical materials to support dozens of science and research investigations that will occur on board the orbiting laboratory. We'll go into a little bit more detail on some of that research later on in today's webcast. This version of Dragon has 20% more volume and double the powered lockers. And in order to fly more cargo, we've made a few modifications to the spacecraft from the vehicle used on our Demo 2 and Crew 1 missions. Since there are no people on board, we've removed the Super Draco engines, which not only power Crew Dragon, but will also carry astronauts away from Falcon 9 to safety in the unlikely event of an emergency on the pad or during ascent. We've also removed 2 trunk fins used only for abort scenarios, and in the pressurized section, the seats and crew displays have been swapped for cargo racks. Lastly, and for those keeping count, if we do successfully land Falcon 9 today, this will mark our 68th booster landing and the 35th successful landing for our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You. And finally, above the first stage is our second stage. It has a single Merlin vacuum or MVAC engine, which ignites after the first stage separates. The second stage is what will carry Dragon to its intended orbit, allowing the spacecraft to eventually rendezvous with the International Space Station. It's T-minus 10 minutes. and 20 seconds and counting. The SpaceX team is working no significant issues. For propellant, the go-no-go poll was conducted at the T-minus 38-minute mark, and propellant loading began shortly after that, around the T-minus 35-minute mark. At this point, RP-1 fuel is completely loaded on the second stage and almost done on the first stage. For liquid oxygen, it's currently underway on both stages and should complete around the T-minus 2-minute mark. We're also loading helium gas into both stages. Falcon 9 uses helium as a pressurant to backfill the propellant tanks as liquid oxygen and RP-1 are consumed by the Merlin engines during ascent. For Dragon, we've also began its startup sequence at the T-minus 35-minute mark when it coordinated timing with Falcon 9. It's currently undergoing vehicle health checks with the next big step just before liftoff when the Dragon transition laboratory, and today's mission is no different. Dragon will be carrying dozens of research payloads to the space station, including research from the National Laboratory, operated by the Center for the Advancement of Science in Space, or CASIS. There are more than 20 payloads sponsored by NASA and the National Lab on today's mission, representing more than 50 science experiments, all of which are intended to benefit life on Earth. Let's take a few minutes and look at some of the groundbreaking research from CASIS that will be aboard the CRS-21 mission.
SpaceX's 21st Commercial Resupply Services mission to the International Space Station is ready to launch from Kennedy Space Center. This mission will bring critical cargo, research, and technology demonstration payloads to the orbiting laboratory. The ISS National Laboratory is proud to sponsor more than 15 payloads on this mission, representing dozens of experiments to further fundamental and applied research through space-based inquiry and to engage the next generation of researchers and explorers. Here's a quick look at some of the payloads on SpaceX CRS-21. 3 projects on this mission are funded by the National Institutes of Health through its joint multi-year Tissue Chips in Space initiative with the ISS National Lab. Tissue chips are small devices engineered to grow human cells on an artificial scaffold to model the structure and function of human tissues. Studying tissue chips in space may accelerate pathways for understanding disease and developing new treatments for use on Earth and beyond. In 2019, a team of researchers from the University of California, San Diego sent a brain organoid model to space for the first time ever to study neurological diseases in microgravity. Based on findings from that initial investigation, the team is launching a second payload to further examine how microgravity affects the survival, metabolism, and cognitive function of brain cells in an organoid model. Bristol Myers Squibb, a leading pharmaceutical company, is launching a protein crystallization investigation aimed at improving drug formulation and delivery for patients on Earth. In this experiment, the team will study the crystallization of monoclonal antibodies in space to improve their crystallization back on the ground. Monoclonal antibodies are lab-created proteins designed to interact with specific targets called antigens and are used in the treatment of several diseases, including cancer. Did you know that more than 7 million tomato seeds have been sent to low Earth orbit and exposed to microgravity? That's right. Tomatosphere is an education program in which students and teachers around the country compare the germination rates of space-flown seeds and Earth-based seeds. The program provides students with a glimpse into how the unique microgravity environment of the ISS affects plant growth. Speaking of education, this mission includes more than 30 experiments from the Student Spaceflight Experiments Program, which provides yearly opportunities for students and communities around the world to leverage the space station for research using mixed-stick testing tubes. Investigations from this year's participating students span a variety of research areas, including the physical and life sciences, as well as plant biology. Since its inception in 2010, the program has engaged more than 125,000 students in space-based projects. Many of the investigations on this mission build on previously flown experiments. Such research serves to advance the knowledge gained through space-based inquiry, delivering value to our nation and driving a robust, sustainable, and scalable market in low Earth orbit. We look forward to this launch and the important research that will be completed on our nation's orbiting laboratory in the coming months. To learn more about all ISS National Lab sponsored research on this mission, please visit issnationallab.org.
This is just a small sample of the dozens of research experiments that Dragon will take up to the space station. For more information on the exciting microgravity research happening on the orbiting lab, you can follow @space_station on Twitter. We are currently under contract with NASA to resupply the space station through 2024 as part of a second commercial resupply services contract award. These missions will use the new version of Dragon, which can fly both cargo and people. And today's mission marks the first flight under this new contract, and we're super excited to continue this partnership with NASA. Flying NASA astronauts and helping keep the space station fully operational is a top priority for us here at SpaceX. We are just past T-minus 4 minutes and continuing to count down for an 11:17 a.m. Eastern launch to the International Space Station. In these last few minutes, Falcon 9 is performing final health checks on its primary communications, avionics, and propulsion systems in preparation for flight. Just to give you a recap of what's been happening at the T-minus 7-minute mark, we began engine chillin'. This is where we inject a small amount of super chilled liquid oxygen to prepare the 9 first-stage engine turbopumps for full propellant flow during flight. You might hear the callouts that engines are sufficiently chilled later on in the countdown. At the T-minus 4-minute mark, the transporter erector, which is that large truss structure next to Falcon 9, began to retract away from Falcon 9 in preparation for liftoff. In about a minute around the T-minus 2-minute mark, liquid oxygen should complete loading on the second stage, and that will be the last of our propellant loading. At the T-minus 1-minute mark, Falcon 9 flight computers will enter startup mode and guide the rocket through the rest of the countdown. Shortly after that, the SpaceX launch erector will give the go for launch, and finally at T0, the rocket is released from the hold down clamps for liftoff, after which the strong back fully retracts away from the rocket, clearing way for Falcon 9's ascent. Checkouts of the second stage thrust vector control actuators are also underway. You often hear people refer to this as an engine wiggle test. This is when we move the thrust nozzle slightly to make sure that the guidance hardware is a go for flight. We do the exact same checkouts on the engines for the first stage, except that occurs just seconds before ignition. Dragon is also performing its final health checkouts to make sure all of its primary systems are ready for its rendezvous with the space station. The range remains a go for launch, and whether we are still continuing to monitor. Let's listen into the nets for the last few minutes of terminal count. And you can see that we have some white clouds starting to form around Falcon 9. This is completely normal for us at this stage in the countdown. That is liquid oxygen condensing when it meets the warmer ambient airs of Florida. We've just passed the T-minus 1 minute mark. Both stages are beginning to pressurize for launch. And we are reaching the T-minus 30-second mark. All systems are go for launch. This is mission CRS-21, the last mission of Dragon for this year. T plus 50 seconds into flight. Falcon 9 is carrying our upgraded Dragon vehicle to low Earth orbit. In a few seconds, we'll be passing max Q, which is the moment where the vehicle will experience the highest amount of aerodynamic pressures. And we've just passed max Q. Coming up are 3 events in rapid succession. The first event is MECO, or main engine cutoff. This is where all 9 of the Merlin engines on the Falcon 9 first stage will shut down in preparation for the second event, which is stage separation. This is where the first and second stage will separate from one another. And a few seconds after that, we'll have a second engine start 1, where the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage will. Now, looking on the left-hand side of your screen, the first stage, in order to make its way back to our drone ship, the first stage executes a series of 2 burns. Until then, we get some really cool views of both the first and second stage. You'll notice that our grid fins on the first stage have also deployed. Those help to guide the first stage back during descent. You can also see some periodic plumes of gas, that's nitrogen, coming from our attitude control systems. And those help to orient the first stage as it continues to fall back towards Earth. And there it goes. We're about a minute away from the first of these 2 burns on the first stage. And just checking in with the second stage, everything seems to be looking nominal.
Trajectory nominal.
That engine that you see on the right-hand side can produce over 220,000 pounds of thrust in a vacuum. That single engine is what is carrying Dragon to low Earth orbit right now. And we're just a few seconds away from our re-entry burn on the first stage. Watch for those 3 Merlin engines to relight and slow the stage down.
Stage 1, entry burn startup.
And there's our entry burn. Again, that's 3 engines slowing the first stage down before it hits that dense part of the Earth's atmosphere.
Trajectory nominal.
Stage 1, entry burn shutdown.
And we are done with the first of 2 burns on the first stage. The second burn, the landing burn, will happen at the T plus 8 minute and 18 second mark. That second burn should last for about 25 seconds. And as that burn is happening, we should also be having another major event for the second stage, second engine cutoff. We'll see if we can hear that as the landing burn begins. As we wait for this landing burn, this is going to be our 68th attempt to recover our first stage, and we are going to be attempting to land on our drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. Of course, I still love you.
Second stage and terminal guidance.
Stage 1, landing burn startup.
And we got audio confirmation
STS is saved.
that the first stage has begun its landing burn. Everything's looking great on the second stage right now.
Stage 1, landing leg deploy.
There's a view from our drone ship. Here comes Falcon 9.
Pico.
And Falcon 9 has landed once again. That is the 68th successful first stage recovery. This mission also marks the 100th successful flight of Falcon 9. It's also the 35th time we've landed successfully on our drone ship. Of course, I still love you. During that landing, we did get confirmation of second stage, second engine cutoff, also confirmation of a good orbit. And second stage now has one last major task, commanding separation of Dragon just a few minutes from now. And we should have a video of Dragon separation from the top of the second stage. It should give us a nice view into Dragon's unpressurized cargo trunk area. This is an animation to show where each of the stages are currently in this mission. The second stage has turned off its Merlin vacuum engine and is currently coasting, awaiting for Dragon separation. There's a view of the unpressurized section of Dragon. Now, for a typical CRS mission, after Dragon deploys, we would be waiting for solar array deployment. But as a reminder, this is our new Dragon vehicle, and it has solar panels mounted along the surface of the trunk. You might be able to see it once Dragon separates, but those solar panels are already activated and producing power. We are about 45 seconds away from Dragon separation. Again, we are in a coast phase. Even though the engines are not on, we are still coasting at pretty fast pace, 27,000 kilometers per hour. And we are expecting Dragon separation just a few seconds from now.
Dragon separation confirmed.
And there is Dragon separated from the second stage. What a cool view. That is, if you've been following us, looks a lot different than our previous CRS missions. Dragon is carrying approximately 6,400 pounds of cargo to the International Space Station on this mission. A small portion of the cargo represents supplies for the astronauts, things like food and clothing, but most of the cargo represents science going up to the space station. The International Space Station serves as the world's leading laboratory for cutting-edge research and technology development that will enable human and robotic exploration of destinations beyond low Earth orbit, including the Moon and even Mars. The Dragon vehicle is just beginning its journey. It has about 26 hours before reaching the space station. The next major event is nose cone deploy, and that's where we expose the guidance, navigation, and control sensors and docking mechanisms. We won't be able to see that on camera, but we should be able to get confirmation of it. And we do have confirmation of nose cone deploy, and Dragon is now, there it is, Dragon is now on its way to the space station. Again, over the next 26 hours, Dragon will perform a series of orbital height adjustment maneuvers with its Draco engines until its 28th time, and successfully deployed our upgraded Dragon vehicle into orbit. Today's mission also marked the 100th successful flight for Falcon 9. Dragon's arrival and docking to the space station will be streamed live starting tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. Eastern on NASA TV. Dragon will spend, again, about 5 weeks attached to the space station before returning to Earth with cargo and research. Keep an eye out for mission updates on NASA and SpaceX's social media accounts. We want to give a big thanks to the Range and Federal Aviation Administration for their support today. And of course, finally, thank you to everyone that has joined and tuned in for today's launch. Until next time, have a great rest of your weekend.
Mars, and you just boggle the mind. And the technology caught up to them.
Today marks the beginning of yet another incredible journey from Axiom Space and SpaceX as we lead the way in expanding access to low Earth orbit for all of humanity. You are looking at a live shot of the Falcon 9 rocket and Dragon spacecraft that will carry the next 4 private astronauts to the International Space Station in just over 3 hours from now. To everyone around the globe tuning in, hello and welcome to the live launch webcast for the Axiom Mission 2, or as we call it, AX2. My name is Duke Brady, and I'm a multimedia specialist with Axiom Space based out of Houston, Texas.
And I'm Kate Tice, Quality Systems Engineering Manager here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. Duke, it's so good to have you and the Axiom teams with us today.
Very excited.
Today's mission is a pretty cool milestone for SpaceX. AX2 is our 10th human spaceflight mission overall and our 9th human spaceflight mission to the orbiting laboratory since we started flying people back in 2020 with NASA's Demo 2 mission. It also marks SpaceX's second human spaceflight mission this year, following the NASA Crew 6 launch in March to the International Space Station. The AX2 crew will be joining Expedition 69 and Dragon Endeavour, all still currently on station. As we count down today's scheduled liftoff, we'll be keeping you updated on the status of the crew, launch vehicle, systems, weather, and all the technical aspects of launch. And in between, we'll be taking you behind the scenes of the AX2 mission, what led up to this moment, and what to expect during the course of this 10-day mission.
For Axiom Space, this mission builds on the incredible success of our first all-private astronaut crew to the ISS last year, the AX-1 mission, and takes us one step closer to building and operating Axiom Station, the world's first private space station, which is currently under construction. AX-2 is the second of 4 missions SpaceX will launch for Axiom Space, and today's launch is the culmination of years of effort by teams at Axiom Space to expand the opportunities of private citizens and sovereign nations around the world so that they can partake in the incredible science, research, and STEAM education-related activities in low Earth orbit. In fact, we just recently announced Axiom Space Access Program, which is designed to enable countries to realize long-term economic and scientific value in microgravity. So if you want to fly to space, or if your organization wants to conduct research and manufacturing efforts in microgravity, we have the teams that can help you develop your program. We believe that the commercial effort and presence in low Earth orbit has a duty to expand research and manufacturing capabilities conducted in space for the benefit of all humankind. And that's a big part of what makes today's mission so exciting. 2 members of our crew are citizens of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, or KSA. They are Rayana Barnawi, the first ever Saudi female to fly to space, and Ali Al-Qarni, a captain in the Royal Saudi Air Force. Together, they are following in the footsteps of Sultan bin Salman Al Said, who flew aboard Space Shuttle Discovery in 1985. But they also represent the first Saudi national astronaut class, which we had the honor of helping select and train in preparation for this moment.
Really exciting stuff. Now, turning our attention to the crew, they are suiting up inside right behind those doors that you see there. That's SpaceX's Falcon support building.
Displays are configured for crew ingress, and advanced team work is complete and ready for crew arrival on schedule.
All right, just a call out there from our SpaceX core, letting all teams know on countdown that we're tracking on time. So that's great news to hear.
Great.
So yeah, they are getting suited up right now in preparation for their liftoff from that launch pad right there. That, of course, is the historic Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Once they arrive at the space station, the crew will spend 8 days living and working on board before returning to Earth.
Yes, and over the course of that 10-day journey, the AX2 crew will conduct a wide range of research, including several experiments that will help us understand more than ever about how our human bodies respond to microgravity. The data they'll collect will be critical to furthering human exploration of space, and along the way will inspire dreamers, thinkers, and explorers to follow in their footsteps.
Every human spaceflight crew is unique, with each astronaut bringing their own background and expertise to the mission. With that, let's introduce you to the AX2 crew.
The AX2 mission is commanded by retired NASA astronaut Peggy Whitson. Born and raised in Beaconsfield, Iowa, she was inspired, along with the world, when we watched the Apollo 11 crew walk on the moon. She has since become the most experienced American astronaut and one of the most decorated. Whitson flew 3 long-duration missions to the ISS and has more cumulative time in space, 665 days, than any U.S. astronaut and more than any woman in the world. She has conducted 10 spacewalks with over 60 hours out in the vacuum of space and has performed hundreds of research experiments on board the ISS. Not only is she the commander for this mission, but Peggy also serves as the director of human spaceflight for Axiom Space.
The pilot for AX-2 is private astronaut John Schaffner. Born in Alaska and raised in Kentucky, Schaffner is a STEAM education advocate, business pioneer, and lifelong space enthusiast. A pilot since the age of 17, John has over 8,500 flight hours holding commercial, instrument, single-engine, and multi-engine ratings in land and sea aircraft, as well as helicopter. He also holds ratings in former military jets and high-performance radial engine aircraft. As an athlete, John has years of competitive experience in water skiing, cycling, whitewater kayaking, hang gliding, skydiving, and base jumping. John trained as the AX-1 backup pilot, and during this mission plans to invest a lot of his time in STEAM education activities aimed at empowering educators and inspiring teachers.
Representing the Saudi Space Commission and serving as a mission specialist, Ali Al-Qarni was born in March 1992 in Sabt al-Alaya, Saudi Arabia. Ali is fluent in English as well as his native Arabic. And as an Air Force captain, Ali has 12 years of experience flying on multiple aircraft, primarily on the F-15SA in service to the Royal Saudi Air Force. Ali graduated with a Bachelor of Aerospace Science degree in 2013 from King Faisal Air Academy in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
Also representing the Saudi Space Commission and serving as a mission specialist, Rayana Barnawi was born in September 1988 in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Rayana has a master's degree in biomedical sciences from Al Faisal University in Riyadh, and also has a bachelor's degree in biomedical sciences from Otago University in Dunedin, New Zealand. If that wasn't enough knowledge, she is fluent in English and Turkish, as well as native Arabic. She has been a research lab technician since 2013 in the Stem Cell and Tissue Re-engineering Program at King Faisal Specialist Hospital and Research Center located in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
There you have it, the AX-2 crew. This really is an amazing group of people who have spent months preparing for this moment. We are already beyond proud of them and can't wait to see them in space.
At the moment, they should be making their final preparations inside our Falcon support building, and then soon they'll be making their first public appearance, fully suited and ready to fly. They should be walking out of those doors here in just a couple of minutes.
Yes, absolutely. But, you know, as excited as we are for this crew and their launch, there have been entire communities of loved ones, both friends and family, around the world who have been looking forward to this moment for quite some time, actually. So to Peggy, John, Ali, and Rayana, here are a few words from those who love you to help mark this occasion.
Hey, John, just wanted to take a second and give you a big shout out and tell you how proud we are that you're representing Middlesboro and all of us on your mission to the International Space Station. We want to say thank you for allowing us to be part of your experience and taking us beyond the crater.
John, have fun, Godspeed.
Have fun.
Going to outer space. I am so fired up for you. You have no idea. Wish you the best of luck, and please, please do send me a postcard from up there.
Congratulations. I'm so excited for you, John. Woo! Excellent. Good job.
Wish you the best of luck. I don't know who these people are, but they will also want to wish you a safe and excellent mission. Enjoy and say hi to the boys from all of us. Good luck. Good luck.
Hey, boy. Tell the skies. A new star is rising. An
a blessing that showers and glow. Go out there and be the light.
Such a sweet insight into all that support and all those friends and family.
Super touching.
That's great. The entire Axiom Space team and all of our partners truly appreciate and are humbled by the worldwide interest and support for this historic flight today. As the crew wraps up their preparations inside the Falcon Support Building, let's provide a bit of an overview of the operations for today. It's been a pretty busy morning already for the AX2 crew. They woke up at about 9 a.m. Eastern, had their first medical checks of the day, and then shared a meal with their quarantine support staff. At 12:20 Eastern, they departed the quarantine facility and flew to Kennedy Space Center for a special moment with family and friends at the tarmac of the KSC launch and landing facility. This event also marked the formal handoff of the crew to SpaceX for today's launch.
Around T-minus 3 hours and 50 minutes, the crew arrived at the suit-up room and began putting their suits on. Right around then, we also had the crew pre-launch briefing, and that's where we share weather and launch details and basically give them their tablets, which they get to bring with them during flight. And all of that brings us to where we currently are, suit up. We are awaiting for them to make their appearance, but yeah, there's been a lot of activity.
Absolutely. And we know at about T-minus 3 hours and 25 minutes, the crew began suiting up. And once that process is complete, they'll exit the Falcon Support Building and get into their Teslas. We will have 2 astronauts in each of the Teslas, led by a support vehicle.
After that, it's a short drive to the launch pad, and once they arrive, the crew will ascend the fixed service structure in an elevator up to the 255-foot level. That's the structure you see there on your screen to the right of the rocket. The crew will then take the stairs up the last 10 feet, where they will stop and make one final phone call before walking down that crew access arm to the White Room. The White Room is their last stop before climbing into the spacecraft, a process known as crew ingress. During ingress, the SpaceX team will run a series of checks to ensure the suits, seats, and vehicle interactions are all functioning properly. After all the vehicle and crew checkouts are completed, the SpaceX closeout team will close Dragon's side hatch and depart the pad. At about T-minus 40 minutes, the crew access arm will retract away, followed by the arming of the launch escape system. Once the arm is retracted and the escape system is armed, propellant loading will begin on Falcon 9. At T-minus 5 minutes, Dragon will be configured for what we call terminal count. This is when Dragon's onboard computers take control of the spacecraft. And finally, the moment we're all waiting for, T0, Dragon and Falcon will lift off from pad 39A. Roughly 12 minutes after liftoff, Falcon will separate from Falcon 9's second stage and spend the next 16 hours making its way to the International Space Station.
Good afternoon. I'm John Innsbrucker, Falcon 9 Principal Integration Engineer here at SpaceX. We're currently at T-minus 3 hours, 13 minutes, and 18 seconds, and everything looks good for an on-time launch later today. Now, as Kate mentioned, the crew received a weather briefing just at T-minus 4 hours. Now, the good news is the probability of violating launch conditions has decreased since yesterday. We're down to only a 25% chance of a violation today. The main constraint we're tracking is upper altitude anvil clouds. The ground level winds are not a concern. We're up to about maybe 17, 18 miles an hour. The upper level wind shear also is expected to be low, but as we get later in the afternoon here in Florida, the upper altitude winds could blow some of the clouds inland over the launch site and the ascent trajectory. We are, of course, tracking weather all along the ascent and recovery corridors today, and we'll keep you posted as we continue to monitor those environments. But currently, ascent weather looks good. Now, at pad 39A, as you can see on your monitor, Falcon 9 is powered up. Checkouts were performed overnight. Pressurization of the gas storage tanks on the Falcon 9 completed about half hours.
What it's gonna feel like once you are on top of the mountain and looking down. I'm sure it's gonna be an amazing view and experience.
Live outside your comfort zone. You're capable of so much more than you might believe. So try things that you think you might not succeed at. because you'll find out that you really are much more capable.
One more round of applause for our crew for the AX2 mission.
Are in their suits. They went through the appropriate checks and fit-ups, and we should be seeing them walk out these doors. Any minute now.
I love the serendipity of that moment.
Any minute now.
I love the serendipity of that moment. That's going to be the rest. That's going to be the rest of the day, right? Everything's right on cue.
Yeah, I like it.
The day, right? Everything's right on cue.
Yeah, I like it.
This is certainly a big moment for them. That moment at Axiom where we have this is certainly a big moment for them. That moment at Axiom where we have this stepping to space send-off is a big one, going from that training to operational phase. But this might be the next big one, the next big step for their mission.
Now, we have seen the crew in their suits, in the days leading up to launch. We had a dress rehearsal a couple days ago. I guess that was Friday. And so we've seen the crew walk through and rehearse all of this, but this will be the first time that we're seeing them on the day they get to go to space.
I have to imagine it feels completely different. But I also think maybe their training has made this sort of normal. They're in the mode, they have the muscle memory at this point. This sort of normal. They're in the mode, they have the muscle memory at this point. Something's familiar, but some things have to also be a little heightened today.
Absolutely. Now there we can see the 3 Teslas that will take them up a short distance. It's a little bit less than a half mile from those doors to the elevator doors at the base of pad 39A. We will see Commander Peggy Whitson and pilot John Schaffner together in one of those black Teslas, while the mission specialist Ali Al-Karni and Rayana Barnawi will be partnered in another. So, like we said, it's a short drive. They could walk it, but I've done that walk. It's not great, especially, it's pretty warm in Florida already and a little humid. So we want to keep everybody cool and comfortable. So they're going to hop in these vehicles and head up.
Launch Director and Countdown.net. The crew is beginning their walkout to drive to the pad at this time.
All right, it sounds like we should be seeing our AX2 crew any moment now, coming through those double doors that you see on your screen.
Now, because we here in this location, we are inside the blast area, so no family or media are allowed here, but certainly an emotionally significant moment, and we're...
Aha! And here they are, our AX2 crew. This is very exciting. This is our first live look at the AX2 crew suited up for their mission to the International Space Station. On your far left, you see Rayana Barnawi, followed by Peggy Whitson, then John Schaffner, then Ali Al-Karni. Wow, incredible. We've got a great group wave there. The team unifying for their first big
successful on our missions. And every one of you does a tremendous job to make spaceflight possible. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
What a fantastic message from Peggy Whitson, from STS-111 to AX2. What a career, what a phenomenal set of achievements.
You know, I remember the day, that Axiom announced that she would be commanding this mission, and it was such an incredible moment because she really is one of the legends of NASA, and I was just so excited to see that she was going to be flying in a SpaceX Dragon. So what an exciting opportunity.
Absolutely.
Once again, those live views coming to us from inside the Teslas as the crew members of AX2 are pulling up to their rocket. They're now getting closer and closer to pad 39A, where Falcon 9 and our Dragon Freedom capsule await to take them to the International Space Station. Now, fun fact about the pad here, those elevator doors, that we see here at the base of the fixed service structure, the core of this structure is original to the pad from the Shuttle and Apollo days. So it is safe to say that when Peggy ascends one of these elevators that in her shuttle days, she was using the same, the core.
Crew have arrived at the pad.
There's that call out, just letting everybody know on countdown that the crew has arrived to the pad, as we can see.
We have Peggy Whitson and John Schaffner. They've exited their vehicles first.
This is one of my favorite moments that we have during the launch sequence is right there it is.
Lean back.
The lean back, and they have to. The vehicle stands so tall there on top of the launch mount.
This day of launch.
Another fun fact about those elevators: the levels of the fixed service structure are not marked by the level number that it is. It's the height in feet that they are ascending to. So the AX2 crew is going up to the 255-foot level, and they will ride up, and that then, after they exit, will take a short 10-foot stairs up to the next level. The difference being is basically the difference in height between the shuttle access arm and the Falcon 9 access arm. Beautiful view there of the backside of the transporter erector. That is the structure that we use for integration of the vehicle, as well as transportation of the integrated vehicle to the launch pad. And of course, we roll it up horizontally and then lift it to the vertical launch position, within, depending on the mission, days or hours prior to liftoff.
There you see Ali and Rihanna doing an excellent lean back for that view. You can see the excitement, hands clapping.
As we mentioned before, they have rehearsed this previously in our dry dress rehearsal on Friday. They suited up, they rode out to the pad, they got in the spacecraft. So they have technically done all of this once before because, in spaceflight, we love to rehearse and practice everything. And really, like the moment for them to look up and realize that these are their last steps on Earth for a few days must be such an incredible moment. The day that they actually get to go to space. It's a moment that they've all trained for a very, very long time for.
Absolutely. So exciting. You see now in your screen, that's Peggy and John. I believe they're using the phone to make their phone calls before launch, their last calls.
Now, for those of you looking at the view here and wondering what those arrows are for, those arrows point the direction towards safety in the event that the crew needs to leave the area quickly. They just look down and they're able to follow those chevrons over to the escape pods, basically. They are baskets on a zip line that allow them to leave the tower if necessary. It's a little counterintuitive because they're walking opposite of the arrows, which of course makes sense because they're going to space, not away.
Rihanna and Ali have gotten to the top of the stairs. They will have their turn to use the phone for their last calls.
That's a pretty cool view there. We see them, they're just in the fixed service structure tower, not yet going across the crew access arm. That access arm, of course, is what connects the tower to the launch vehicle. We should be able to get a really great view of them as they go down the access arm, but looks like everybody's enjoying the view, as they should be.
Yeah.
And as they await their opportunity to make their final phone call.
Speaking of paths, this is the last section of their path before they ingress the vehicle, but Ali and Rihanna actually reported last August to Houston to start training, and this crew has 700 to 1,000 hours of training total by the time they start their operational phase of the mission. It's no easy task.
Now, the folks that are dressed in the all-black bodysuits, those are members of the SpaceX suit and closeout team. So these are the SpaceX employees that will be assisting the crew through their egress and suit leak checks. For FOD, which is foreign object debris, something that we want to avoid at all costs in the spaceflight industry. We make sure that everyone, all the the personnel in this part of the phase are preventing FOD, and that is why we see them dressed in those bunny suits like we do.
Coming down the arm now, you see here's Commander Peggy Whitson and pilot John Schaffner taking a nice look at their rocket through the window there.
Smiles. Yeah. It's incredible, to see someone like Peggy that has been to space so much, one of the most decorated NASA astronauts ever, to still be so excited. It's really heartwarming. We see here now that Peggy Whitson and John Schaffner have now arrived to the White Room. This is a great shot of where they will get to actually, right on the wall, they're going to add their signature to our basically wall of fame.
Everyone, crew at the White Room.
Everyone that flies on a Dragon mission has the opportunity to add their signature. We can see them adding their signature there to the black SpaceX logo, joining the names of the Axiom 1 crew as well as the Inspiration 4 crew.
Sharpie is part of the protocol. You have to have that Sharpie at the ready because it's a really special moment for the crew.
Absolutely. We can see the crew members, the closeout members that are assisting the crew with their ingress process. We can see that they're holding tablets. That is where they are tracking and following along with our electronic procedures, which we call EPROCs. And those EPROCs list out every single step that each person has to carry out in order to enable a successful liftoff. And of course, we have an instantaneous liftoff window today as we are going to the International Space Station. So it's really important to keep tabs on who's doing what and how much time we have left in each activity. We do build in margin into the schedule so that if one thing takes a couple minutes longer, it's okay. We build in a little bit of flexibility there. But those tablets allow the crew to follow along. And one of those steps in the EPROCs for the advanced team, which is the team of SpaceX employees that arrive there to the pad in advance of the crew to prepare for crew arrival. One of those things is to make sure that there is a Sharpie in the White Room. We can see there one of the SpaceX closeout crew team members assisting.
Core on countdown, ingress started.
We want to make sure that nobody bumps the helmet or the side hatch as they enter the vehicle. We can now see pilot John Schaffner in the seat on the left and Commander Peggy Whitson in the seat on the right. The seats that they're sitting in utilize a 5-point safety harness, so it's a little bit more advanced than the seatbelt that we have in our automobiles here on Earth.
You have John and Peggy in the vehicle. Fun little note about John Schaffner. He's going to be the first Alaskan to fly to space. He was born in Fairbanks, Alaska. I've spent a lot of time there from my biology background, and it's an extreme environment. So just being from Alaska, I feel like is training enough to prepare for space.
Alaska is cold, space is cold.
Yeah, there you
they go together. We can see there our mission specialists, Rayana Barnawi and Ali Al-Karni, still finishing up the final steps before walking down the crew access arm. They are working with the SpaceX closeout team members to do the final checks and, of course, some waves. Now entering that crew access arm and making their way down to Dragon Freedom.
Smiles and waves. All right, thumbs up from the KSA mission specialists, Rihanna Barnawi and Ali Alkarni, as they enter the white room and likely go straight to signing that SpaceX logo next to the AX-1 crew and joining their crewmates' signatures. It's really incredible for this new era of space travel to be forming, where we're going to have sovereign nation representation on that signature wall. It's just really exciting to see the evolution and change of things here as we grow commercial spaceflight.
Absolutely. Space for all.
Yeah. You mentioned this closeout crew. It's really, as Peggy said in that send-off video too, it's really phenomenal to think about the size of these teams and every pair of hands that gets put on these mission preparations and to make this crew perform their mission successfully. It's incredible to think about all of those people involved. It's as though they're not traveling just for themselves or even their countries, but like you said, it's space for all. They're traveling for all of humanity.
Once again, we can see the tablets being utilized for the closeout team members to follow along with the procedures.